Tonight's Rock Family Tree is about some of the most exciting and distinctive bands of the past 2 decades. Siouxsie and the Banshees, Public Image Ltd, Adam and the Ants and The Slits have all left their mark on pop music. They all had their own sound, image and careers, but shared the same roots in the London punk scene of the late 1970s. Many had been friends for years, from a time when they were young punks, and their lives would continue to intertwine throughout the 80s and 90s as each band carved out its own career.
Christine, the strawberry girl, Christine, banana split lady.
In the mid-1970s, a group of teenagers, bored by life in the suburbs of the home counties, looked to London for something more. They would travel up to the capital and meet in clubs and at concerts, united by an interest in music and a love of being outrageous.
I sort of got introduced into the nightlife in London, you know, my escape out of the suburbs. My sister used to be a dancer around the sort of pub circuit. A go-go dancer, and I was completely besotted by the lifestyle.
I just decided to quit work forever. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and I had some tickets to go and see Roxy Music play at Wembley. I went up with my friend Simon, who basically knew Siouxsie sort of second-hand and introduced me there at that concert. And not that I wouldn't have spotted her in the first place. I mean, she was quite extraordinary looking even in those days.
The focus emerged for these teenagers in the burgeoning punk scene, spearheaded by the Sex Pistols, the brainchild of Malcolm McLaren.
It was Simon and Severin that told me about, oh, you know, you must come and see this band. You know, they scare the shit out of the audience. They're great, you know.
And they were so loud that you couldn't really make anything out. I just thought that, I mean, the whole feel of it, I mean, it was just I just thought it was incredible. I just thought it was the best thing I'd ever seen. I mean, despite not being able to hear the music.
It was just very exciting, and it was more to do with meeting the people that went to see the Pistols. I mean, it was to see the band as well, but it was a lot more as well.
Following the Pistols' example, punk bands started springing up all over London. One was made up of the notorious pistol-to-be Sid Vicious and 3 girls.
We were a group of people just hung out together, and I went to a pub in Westbourne Grove one night and was introduced to Sid Vicious. And I said I had a guitar, which I probably had about 3 weeks, and he said, well, why don't we form a band? And I was quite taken aback, but I was up for it, of course. It's great. Can't play a thing, but never mind, nor could he. It just didn't matter.
John Lydon, then Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols, was Sid's flatmate at the time. He christened the band.
This was Sid's first time at musicianship, and he fancied himself as a drummer because he was just listening to a Cante Go Mago and he thought he could master that in an evening. They formed this fake band and they didn't have a name, so I came up with Flowers of Romance because I thought it was the most absurd title in the world.
We used to hang out in bars around Notting Hill and be bombarded by journalists saying, are you in a band? Because actually no one looked like us around. There were only 100 or so people who kind of looked like that, and you'd be stopped everywhere you went. You'd be looked at and asked questions as if you were a celebrity just because you looked so strange.
Malcolm McLaren organised a punk festival as a showcase for London bands, and Siouxsie and Severin agreed to play at it, even though they didn't have any instruments or any idea of how to play them.
Severin was in, and I think Billy said he would play, and Sid said, yeah, I'll play.
Yeah, I was just introduced to Siouxsie and Steve. We went to a party that evening, and I think Billy Idol was They had Billy lined up to play guitar, and he didn't want to do it because he basically thought Susie and Steve and Sid were a bunch of idiots. So I thought, well, these are the people for me.
The next day, the Sunday, we had a rehearsal down at the Clash's studio where basically we just learned how to turn everything on, and that was it. And Sid bashed around for like 10 minutes and got bored.
I think we were going to do Goldfinger and Captain Scarlet. Before we even started playing, before 1, 2, 3, 4, we realised that there was absolutely no point. We could never learn these songs. You know, it would have taken us 6 months to learn Goldfinger, and you know, we were playing the next night. So Sid said, well, let's just make a noise. We all said, fine, let's do that then.
We turned up, and me and my naivety kind of said, right, I want to be really loud, so I want 3 microphones, okay? So I really don't know if this sound engineer was as naive as I would. He said, all right. So that was, you know, kind of a trademark to start off with. I had these 3 microphones gaffered together because I wanted not twice as loud, but 3 times as loud as anyone else. I wanted to, you know, because I'd read about people's bowels dropping out with certain frequencies, and I thought if I can really try and make it painful, we might see some action here.
I don't even know to this day if I was actually turned on. It sounded like there was something humming behind me. Sid was just bashing away, and Marco knew the riffs. Marco could play Smoke on the Water, and I think Marco was quite good even then. And he got some handsome feedback, and that's all we needed.
Something happened. Something happened. Ooh.
It was brilliant. It was, you know, the energy was there, and it was really, it was perfect for that moment in time.
It was me singing or saying the Lord's Prayer, but with like twist and shout, Deutschland über alles, knocking on heaven's door.
Siouxsie was barking out these words and lyrics from songs of the past to rearrange the whole meaning.
And over all of this was the only musician who was like this smoke on the water was wafting in and out of this cacophony. It was so bizarre.
With hindsight, we can say it's an art performance or something, but it was just 4 people got up, couldn't be bothered to write any songs, couldn't really play anything, and we just made a noise.
And then just walked straight back into the crowd, and, you know, I think we immediately did an Evening Standard interview where we said we're splitting up.
But I think we looked good, so I mean, you know, that's the thing we were sort of most interested in.
The first version of Siouxsie and the Banshees only lasted 1 gig. The Flowers of Romance were finding it equally hard to maintain a consistent lineup.
Invited to go and play with Sid, Steve and Vivian Albertine, Steve Walsh, at the Clash's rehearsal rooms in Camden Town. It was freezing. They had a little electric fire there, I remember, with 1 bar on it. Sid used to always be spitting on it, and it'd be and all these kind of things. And played a few songs. Sid had a few songs of his own. Belson Was a Gas was one of them. And then we'd do some Ramones songs, and then it would all fall apart.
As the Flowers of Romance floundered, Siouxsie and Severin, encouraged by their first experience, began to put together another lineup. They teamed up with Malcolm McLaren protégé Nils Stevenson, who agreed to manage them, and they asked Kenny Morris to play on drums.
And the first thing I remember was that Siouxsie was delivering almost like a staccato, almost like a beat in itself, and I just played right up against that with the rhythm.
Even then he was quite sort of very earnest and quite, you know, very sort of pretentiously arty, but that was fine in those days. And he had a lot of good ideas and a lot of energy, and you know, he looked the part, and it's basically the 3 of us just hunting around for a guitarist for a while.
That's one thing I never want to do again, is look for guitarists. I mean, these people just turn up and plug in and go,